And my next topic was moving on to review something we'd seen last week, and that we've more mention of cockroaches than I think I ever want to see in a lifetime in terms of Jamie Dimon's famous warning sign. But now we've seen a lot of more commentators, including the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey, getting on this bandwagon of sounding alarm bells around private credit. And back to this data lake and versus data desert that I cited earlier, it seems we're still really grappling with very little information. In the private credit, we've seen two high-profile bankruptcies. We've seen two regional banks encounter trouble again in the US, and we've seen suggestions that it's not just one; there'll be more kind of fallout from this. But from what you see, have you seen any indication of any perhaps kind of something more concerning in private credit? Do you see that there's any concern by investors, perhaps, that it's got too crowded, too opaque, too aggressive?
Yeah, well, the emergence of cockroach references is definitely never a good sign because it's a significant signal to the market, especially when it comes from the likes of Jamie Dimon or Bank of England. Another one which happened last week was IMF, so also sounding the signs of concern and potential sharp corrections. Now, when I look at the overall state of private debt market, the growth was obviously very quick. There was a lot of demand from institutional investors to get this additional yield from illiquidity. But then, as you say, if the data is less readily available, and there may be some practices sitting beneath the top level of just providing private loans to companies that could potentially have a trigger effect, similar to how gilts and spike in yields in the UK in 2022 all of a sudden led to the LDI crisis. So you could potentially see something like that. All that said, I would mention the following, that the whole expansion of private debt was happening as banks were stepping out of providing certain types of financing. So they were deleveraging. And then also private equity sponsors, they are now much less inclined to use leveraged loans, and they tend to prefer the private debt direct lending providers, which essentially just balances each other out. So there is less indebtedness in the banking sector, and then you have private debt providers stepping in. They tend to be not leveraged themselves, unlike banks. So it's sort of like another buffer on the system. And then also we are talking about all this expansion of private debt in the context of public indebtedness shooting through the roof. But then at the same time, if you look at the private sector businesses, they actually have fairly healthy balance sheets. And so the level of leverage in the private sector is not as significant as it was, for example, during the GFC. And so it gives you a certain level of resilience. And when I try to interpret why the cockroaches references all of a sudden, I do come back to this instability of the system, because it feels like it is fairly balanced at the moment, but it only takes one potentially significant event and it can go off balance, and then the knock-on effect will just take the system out of equilibrium, and then it could lead to many more